Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Monday, February 19th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread. First card we are starting our day off with today is the Magician. We love to see this because this is a very beautiful amplification on where we left things in terms of our last reading. Now, you will recall one of the things that we identified in our last reading was that feeling of frustration leading to new possibilities, new productivity. This is going to feel like a lot of that breakthrough energy effectively coming through right now, allowing some of that frustration. And I even warned you guys, like when we did our last reading, not to allow that energy to move you into a space or place of deepening conflict. Looking and being able to assess and understand, seeing the fact and recognizing the difference between truly being in conflict. What does true conflict look like? True conflict looks like energies that are not necessarily moving in the same direction. We are seeing here that the divine union energy is effectively recognizing the value and importance of true value conflict versus false conflict. A false conflict is effectively a place or space where, again, if you're moving in the same direction, if you have the same goal, and you're not necessarily moving with the same way of doing it, then that would actually be the false conflict. But the true conflict that we're effectively assessing here is that point of recognizing that this is leading to new opportunities and new possibilities in terms of how to move forward. This is the productivity that we're effectively wanting to see for the energy in the divine union frequency. Because for the energy in the divine union frequency, recognizing that you're moving and you're motivated toward the same direction, but you have very different ways of doing it or going about it, that is now leading to new possibilities, because your own ability to come into a point of compromise is allowing for productivity here. Now, for masculine and feminine that are coming into the divine union frequency, even now we are seeing that this could be the hallmark for a lot of changes that are currently happening right now. One of the things that we identified prior to that break that we took over the weekend was this point of observation, especially in relation to masculine wanting to move forward right now, wanting to move forward much faster towards feminine, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Feminine, we did see that some of masculine energy's own speed required the feminine to feel like they had to pull back a little bit. But again, seeing masculine energy that was able to move in a mindful fashion towards feminine, recognizing again the difference between someone trying to move towards their own desired outcome versus having a sense of recognizing the ability of trying to find that midway point between masculine and feminine right now is leading to a lot of productivity. Even a lot of energies that, again, may have effectively started their union saying, like, we want to move very slowly. This is that sign of something really ramping up, because that same level or degree of mindfulness to the other is almost showing how much productivity is potentially in these spaces if you're on this path. Now, masculine and feminine in separation right now, what we're effectively identifying that is happening in separation right now is that feeling of effectively allowing yourself the new possibilities that are coming into play. We feel like there's a lot of this energy here in separation right now. And this is, I can even see that what's happening here is there's a moment or opportunity that's potentially opening right now for a lot of the energy in separation about effectively, again, what did we see was happening? Looking at what is feeling like a limitation point to see if there's something there that can be fixed, to see if there's something there that can come into a state of adjustment, or if this is the opportunity to allow for new possibilities forward. And what we're identifying right now for a lot of the energy in this situation or circumstance is, again, feeling some kind of spark of connection that's potentially coming to fashion in relation to feeling that there's new energy that is coming towards you that is actually in alignment with what it is that you aspire and desire going forward. For a lot of the energy in separation right now, this is also potentially amplifying a feeling of caution. I'm also going to say this right now. This is going to feel for a lot of the feminine and masculine, and I have to see here that this energy is very much in alignment. This is feeling the same way when you encounter each other. This could be feeling right now, again, that feeling of, I want to put it best, that excitement mixed with caution, that excitement mixed with uncertainty. We're seeing that for a lot of the energy in separation, that sense of navigating that feeling is effectively recognizing that there's something here that is starting up now that feels a little bit different. And this is the energy of moving with someone that is potentially in alignment with you. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Second card in our 5-card spread for today is 8 of Pentacles in its upright. Things feel a little bit different when you're moving with energy that feels like it's on the same path with you. And so what we're effectively identifying, what we love to see are for a lot of the feminine and masculine energy that is in separation. Even in separation right now, what we appreciate is this is not energy in separation that is trying to rush forward and come into union. This is energy that is effectively, again, taking a little bit of a wait and see approach, putting a lot of that effort and energy in right now, and amplifying to a certain degree that the connections that are being made in this space right now are being articulated upon, especially with that sense of seeing and understanding if someone has that committed effort in combination with their own ability to inspire. So this is showing that there's a lot of productivity that's potentially opening up, even for the energy right now that is in separation. And so if you've been feeling that like spark, if you will, right now in separation, this is that sense of finally kind of getting back onto some path work. For a lot of energy right now in separation, this could be feeling to a certain degree like I want to put it this way, it could be feeling like you're getting your groove back to a certain extent. But we like to see this for the energy in separation because this is that reminder that when you're in a good flow state with energy that's in alignment with you, you shouldn't necessarily have to lose that groove in the first place. Now, masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now, this is why the energy coming into divine union is moving into divine union so rapidly right now. Because again, and I think it's I want to say that this energy is kind of ironic to a certain degree, because this is almost energy that's kind of amplifying to the energy around them that it wasn't necessarily their intention to move in this way. This could be a lot of the energetic connections that are coming about right now, maybe speeding up processes here because it feels so natural. It feels so reasonable. It just feels like the thing that one ought to do because it doesn't feel like there's that push-pull that's coming into play. It's that recognition of something that just almost starts to intuitively fall on that path because, again, this is the sign of energy that's just moving in the same direction and finding themselves on that journey. Now, masculine and feminine energy that is in the divine union frequency. This is where we are seeing that some of that frustration spark that we were identifying was coming into play over the last week is now effectively yielding some positive productivity. And while it may have felt more heavy or more energetically oppressive last week, we are seeing that being able to show that commitment to taking that and yielding it into a positive right now is allowing new ideas, new opportunities, a recommitment to the path work, because that is that ability to even again channel a frustration and move it into a productive space is amplifying the strength of the connection. We even identified last week, I will point out, we saw what could have been most effectively amplified as like energies having like what could be identified as like the first fight. And the point of observation that we're seeing for a lot of the energy that's staying in the divine union frequency right now is if you had your first fight and you were able to take that and immediately move it into a productive space, it was even that recognition point right now that even in a moment of conflict, it leads to a deepening of a connection. This is why we needed that kind of like energetic kickstart last week, because that's really kind of fortifying the energy that's coming into the divine union frequency versus the energy that feels like it's still in separation. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is we have here our Ace of Pentacles in its reversal. The hardest thing that we're seeing right now for the energy in the divine union frequency is a feeling or sense of exhaustion. I'm just going to bring this up. If you've been going through any periods right now of energetic or spiritual exhaustion, this may be why. This is doing a lot of energetic heavy lifting to a certain degree. And so even now, we see that there is something very important and vital to be recognized in relation to this energy, making sure that you are taking care of yourself and you are creating what can be stable as opposed to overly giving. So we see here that even now, one of the things that we are recognizing for the energy in the divine union frequency, and we kind of were able to identify that this was occurring, masculine and feminine energies' own ability to overgive to circumstances and situations needs to be modified with what they feel like they have to do. So even now we are seeing some of that nuance that is coming into play in the divine union frequency in relation to building those healthy boundaries in terms of how to do things going forward. This point of frustration right now is effectively why we see so much energy that is potentially having that become a point of adjustment right now, because this is that moment that we're potentially seeing, and it's going to be articulated in the difficulties between just overcoming practical hurdles right now. There could be a lot of assessment right now that's occurring for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency in relation to how to come into efficiencies in practical spaces or places. This isn't surprising to see, because we even recognized and identified last week for the energy in the divine union frequency, some of that frustration was being channeled into external barriers that are making things harder than they necessarily need to be. So even now, being able to come into a point of agreement on them is amplifying and escalating a lot of path work. Because again, this is feeling like, again, you're pulling for a common goal, you're moving in the right direction. And these were allowing you to a certain degree a point of building on the nuance to help recognize if you're doing it in the most effective or efficient way. Now, masculine and feminine that are coming into the divine union frequency, what we're effectively identifying right now is this same ability. This is why we see right now that feeling of like, if someone's almost feeling like a point of surprise here, this is almost because someone feels to a certain extent, masculine or feminine right now in the divine union frequency, that you just potentially stumbled upon everything that you were looking for. This is why we see there's such a ramp up here that's effectively happening, because that ramp up is the feeling of, again, it's not ramping up because you're desiring to change something into something that it is not. It is more that sense of ramping something up because you are feeling that flow state that's potentially coming into play in relationship to circumstances with partners, that is identifying what just feels like it works. So this is giving more in that energy or more in that effort, because that's finding the point of energetic alignment in relationships. Now, for a lot of the energy right now, that is also required, and this is where we find the energy in separation right now, letting go of what wasn't necessarily serving you. So we see here that even now for a lot of the energy in separation, that point of acknowledgement, that point of understanding. This is why we see that there is that hesitancy right now that is occurring for a lot of energy in relation to moving into new partnerships. But that is a positive. That sense of caution is effectively amplifying one's own commitment to seriousness here. So we could even be seeing that there's some energetic alignments right now that are coming to being in separation, that there's some kind of like, I want to say it's going to feel like almost like that seed energy, like something that is coming through right now, something that is changing. But one is looking at it with a sense of care, a sense of caution. What is happening? If these are energies that are coming back into alignment, this is recognizing that these are not energies coming back into alignment that feel like they're repeating a cycle. This is seeing something here where someone is effectively amplifying their own ability to change in a circumstance or situation. Whereas for these being new energetic partnerships that are potentially opening up right now, there's a moment of observation that is potentially happening right now that is, again, that feeling of excitement, but also a sense of healthy caution, because that is showing a level or degree of deep intentionality and commitment in relation to how you are proceeding forward. And energetically, we see there's a lot of energy right now that's meeting each other in that space or place. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we love to see this right now. We've got here our King of Cups. Now, masculine and feminine energy in separation. Let's start with separation right now, because what we really appreciate that for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, there could be something that is being identified here in terms of feeling like something about the path work that has brought you into separation is one where you have effectively found yourself. And what we appreciate here is there is, again, something that we are recognizing as it relates to the masculine energy's own progression and finding themselves right now, that is a pathwork of vulnerability. It's a pathwork of feeling like you are coming into a deepened sense of vulnerability of the self. But what are we effectively identifying and recognizing right now? For a lot of the masculine energy that is moving in this way, even in separation, your own ability to recognize and identify that your ability to stay emotionally balanced, to emotionally ground, even in a moment of separation, is again what is effectively creating the clearance of a lot of that past karmic energy, if you will. Because what we're effectively identifying here is this is masculine energy, if in separation, that is recognizing the way that they may have previously moved versus how they move now. It may feel very grounding. It may feel very emotionally open. It may feel like, to a certain level or degree, that you are being much more in tune with your own emotionality. We will observe that there's a lot of masculine energy right now that feels like they came into separation from a point of deep vulnerability. Is the masculine energy that it came into separation from being very open and honest? Are they regretting that pathwork? No, because what the masculine energy in separation realizes is when you are open and honest, that is a gift that you not only give the other, but it's a gift that you effectively give the self. So this is why we see that point of masculine coming into that sense of deep understanding of the self. We do identify that for a lot of the masculine energy, it does feel like it came at a very potentially high price to a certain degree. But again, that ability of recognizing it, even now, is what we see is allowing for this point of adjustment. Because this is almost masculine energy that is trying to come out of separation by not necessarily following the same path that may have led to separation in the first place. And this is masculine energy and separation, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, that may even be having a lot of points of looking at the past self and observing and seeing how the way that they were moving in the past didn't necessarily allow for the way that they're moving now. That ability to observe the past self and see it almost from a point of being like, I understand now. Like that in itself, and this is why we are seeing not allowing that anger to come through is so important, because that ability not to hold it against oneself, but just to speak with a level or degree of humility towards those experiences is amplifying the journey of masculine coming into a point of deep emotional healing, even in separation. Feminine, potentially recognizing this right now around some of the masculine energy that you are experiencing. You may be feeling like there is a lot of that energetic like change that is happening because you're seeing something potentially, and this is the difference again between masculine energy moving in the same way versus masculine energy that is truly on a journey of the self. Because this is masculine energy that's not only able to expound upon where they are now, but almost being able to amplify and articulate what they may have done in the past that didn't necessarily feel like it was leading them into that place of openness and clarity. That ability of feminine to see masculine energy right now that has that gift of personal observation, that gift of, again, almost constant assessing. That in itself to feminine is seeing feminine recognizing a masculine that, again, puts a lot of care and consideration on their own internal journey to such an extent that feminine is feeling those sparks coming through. That ability to feel like there's something here that is allowing for a new karmic direction to effectively come into play. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is feminine potentially seeing a lot of masculine energy that is trying to move forward right now, almost rush forward on some kind of timeline. This could even be feeling like feminine energy, feeling a little level or degree of surprise, if you will, in terms of seeing the masculine shifting to a certain level or degree. Because this is masculine energy that if it's moving in this way, is doing so from a state of honesty and openness. Feminine energy's own ability to accept the masculine from that point of clarity is also an amplification on the pathwork that the feminine has effectively moved towards, because this is feminine energy that is effectively allowing a space or place for a masculine to feel free, to be open, to be their most expressive emotional self. So here we see, even now, there could be a lot of energetic commitment that's moving much faster. These are energies that basically almost said, we're going to take it really slow, and now suddenly are like effectively like connected, because again, your own observation point and care is being amplified in creating a safe space for each other. See how it works? Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency. What we're effectively identifying at this time is, again, this has to do more, I have to say, this is one of those things where if you're in the divine union frequency, it feels more like little frustrations that are potentially coming into play. Because this is not necessarily the difference in terms of what you're aspiring for. It is amplifying how you want to effectively do it. And this is where we see, again, masculine and feminine energy. Feminine, potentially, and this is where we see what's very funny, is feminine is now, again, coming into a space or place of being adaptable, wanting to effectively, again, work with the masculine. Feminine energy's own flexibility here is showing the fact that this is a feminine energy that is pushing past, again, and this is what we like about the feminine energy in the divine union frequency. Feminine energy in the divine union frequency is recognizing that their own level or degree of being a bit of a stick in the mud. What does the feminine sometimes want to do? Feminine wants to pull back. Feminine is rushing forward a little bit now, right? Feminine is moving forward. Feminine is meeting the masculine with that point of effort. What's the masculine doing in the divine union right now? Masculine energy is not closing off to the feminine. Masculine energy is opening up and emotionally opening up more. So we are finding that even now for the divine union frequency, this is that ability in seeing the beauty of the counterpart energy, because again, it doesn't feel like it's moving oppositionally to you so much as it feels like it is helping to amplify what you are trying to develop within the self. So these are energies that, again, taking something and saying, I appreciate you, I value you because you push me out of my comfort zone, but you never push me over the edge of my comfort zone, is the beauty of the divine union partnership. It's like, it's that gentle nudge, but also being very mindful and doing it with a level or degree of constant care for the other. We see that these energies are in harmony right now because of their own ability to do this. Feminine is emotionally nudging the masculine forward to be open in that way. Masculine is energetically nudging the feminine in terms of being able to activate upon their inspiration points. So both of these energies right now working in beautiful harmony through a point of conflict. Remember I told you that conflict was going to yield positive notes? This is it. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is 2 cards popping out today. We've got here, look at this, positivity, new possibilities. So masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency. This is where we see that this may create a sense of deep care and consideration for the other, because this is that sense of recognizing, and this is what we want to see in energetic harmony. This is why divine union isn't a stagnant place. Being able to constantly, gently push someone a little bit out of their comfort zone is almost creating new energetic rooms, new spiritual rooms for you both to enter for each other. Masculine from an emotional perspective, feminine from an activation perspective. Both of these energies being able to do this for one another is where we see that sense of feeling like your alignment is one that, again, that challenge point isn't looked at as something to move away from. It is looked at as something to be able to confront within the self. And it creates that sense of delight and new possibilities, taking the negative and yielding it into a positive, even through straight states or spaces of conflict or frustration. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This could be an aspect that you're seeing in the other. This is why you may be feeling right now, especially I got to say, there may be some energy right now, and I know it's going to sound a little counterproductive. You may have had like your first fight, but something about that first fight energy is like almost now like completely committed someone to the desire to move forward with someone, because it's that observation point and saying like, wow, even in a moment of challenge, it doesn't lead to separation. It leads to a deepening of the connection, because these are two energies that don't move away from something when something becomes difficult. They move closer towards one another. So we see even now that recognizing that, finding that there's an energetic alignment here, there could be something that we are identifying where a lot of energies are moving much more quickly, even on their own planned timeline, if you will, because you are immediately feeling that difference. You're feeling that commitment. You're already feeling like that inevitability, because again, it feels so fluid, if you will, that it's almost, again, building that sense of understanding and clarity. And it does feel, I have to say, it is a little bit of a challenging space even now, because being able to ascertain on what those plans are for a lot of energy right now in divine union, this is where we're seeing that there's a lot of potential refinement that's coming into play. But even now, it's like a challenging space that just feels like it's a delightful conflict, if you will, being able to go through that. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This ability to hold space for oneself in separation, what we're effectively identifying, is now effectively starting to feel energetically that what is effectively working is you're building a space, and the energy in separation right now is effectively in this modality of recognizing that what is for them will find them. What is in alignment will come towards them. Feminine energy is, again, in this space right now of, again, potentially even seeing examples of this with masculine energy that is coming towards them right now. This is feminine energy that's not trying to force something onto the masculine. This isn't feminine energy trying to chase after masculine. This is feminine moving into this space or place of saying, when the masculine energy is ready, when they're ready to have what I am effectively desiring, they know where to find me. They know where to come. This is feminine energy that is, again, in separation, focusing very much on their own self, on their own work, on their own productivity. Recognizing that a good masculine energy isn't going to ask them to effectively drop everything to be able to move and flow with them. A masculine energy is going to effectively want to see the feminine in that modality. Masculine energy that is in this modality right now, this ability to be emotionally open, we see even now for a lot of the masculine energy, this may be feeling like a vulnerability point coming towards feminine. Because this is that energy that you're effectively seeing here, where again, masculine, you may be recognizing the difference in the way that you're moving right now. Masculine energy, if you're coming into a state or space of openness and clarity of the self, we see that to a certain extent, you're not necessarily looking for that game of like cat and mouse or chase that you may have previously been subscribed to. This is masculine energy moving with a state or space of deep understanding of the self. And when one understands the self, one doesn't feel like you want to participate in anything that feels like it isn't really coming to the core of who you are. So we see even now there could be an observation point in masculine, having an assessment of the self, recognizing how you may have moved in the past. But even now, your own understanding of how you're moving now is building a bridge, as you were, in terms of like coming into better alignment. And for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this is almost that moment that may be feeling like you're living your true authentic life right now. You're not necessarily trying to live that space of fabricating what you think others need to see, but more trying to amplify and lead with what you know to be true within the self. And your own ability to do so right now, you're in the same moment with the feminine, which is, again, feeling that point of understanding and recognizing that as long as you lead from a state of openness and commitment, for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this is just amplifying and feeling like you're finding a lot of ideal counterpart energy in the sense of recognizing that you're doing that work internally right now. So for some of the masculine energy, we do see that this is potentially a path of returning to situations and circumstances wherein you may have felt like you weren't moving authentically in the past. And you're leading with the clarification that you weren't necessarily moving authentic, and you can recognize that. And that is effectively allowing for the bridge of new possibilities to open. Or this is masculine energy right now that is moving forward, holding a very heavy lesson in what they effectively need to relinquish that may have led them into this space or place of understanding of the self. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Magician in combination with our Eight of Pentacles. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Wands. This is that breakthrough energy that we wanted to see. And I told you guys, I know the energy was really heavy last week. I know it was really intense. But what did we see that was happening? For a lot of that intensity was effectively allowing for the energy in the divine union frequency. It was creating a little bit of that enough is enough moment in terms of looking at some things right now and saying, is there anything else I can change versus something I need to release? Or it was allowing for that enough is enough that was amplifying and bringing a lot of energy into divine union a lot faster than they may have effectively intended. Because that enough is enough was feeling like the outside obstructions were now becoming the frustration point in terms of having a better point of alignment. So even now, we are seeing the amplification of whatever those frustrations being, creating a space of new possibilities and new breakthroughs. Now, masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. This ability to do this, even now we see, and I have to stress, for the energy in the divine union, it could have been a lot of that prickly energy last week, a lot of that like stepping on each other's toes, a lot of that frustration in terms of wanting to do something one way, another person wanting to do it the other way, knowing and feeling the empathy of someone effectively almost trying to help you, but helping you in a way that doesn't feel like it was the way that you wanted to be helped. All of those little kind of like energy. This is that breakthrough because it's potentially allowing for something in terms of recognizing what you need to modify to make things easier going forward. This is taking that as a point of productivity and almost deepening commitment because, again, what are we seeing with the energy that is coming into divine union right now? That same sensation. That sensation of, again, potentially feeling a point of prickliness, even having a point of arguing over something, but then that argument becoming a point of productivity. This is rushing energy forward right now because this is almost energy that's looking at something and saying, if that's the worst that it gets, sign me up. Because that's almost seeing something and feeling like, wow, the worst is like completely operable because it feels like everything is a productive space. Now, for the energy right now that's in separation, this point of coming into what works versus what doesn't is potentially going to amplify in feeling like one is effectively just focusing on what works. It means focusing on the positive. We see now for feminine energy, a lot of this over the last few weeks was creating a sense of effectively almost, I want to describe this as like taking your hands off the wheel to a certain extent. This is feminine energy that doesn't even necessarily feel like they're ending something so much as just stepping back to see if that counterpart energy is there, is also a part of something, or if it's just requiring the feminine to do all of the work. This is why this is feminine, almost kind of continuing forward in this way. And it may even be feeling like with feminine saying like, I'm effectively just doing what I was doing before. And there may even be some energy in separation saying it feels like it's easier. And this is the amplification point I need to stress. If this is feminine energy that stepped back from something and they're just doing the things that they're doing, and it feels like something has become easier because they're not trying to energetically bring someone along with them, this is feminine energy that's feeling the positive in terms of feminine energy feeling to a certain extent. Like, again, they're not necessarily leaving anyone behind. They're effectively amplifying that they're looking for energy that recognizes the value of building together. So even now we see that there's a lot of potential peace that's coming right now for the feminine energetic path, in terms of feeling like you're getting back on track to a certain extent. You're just moving forward, if you will, and you're keeping a lot of that positivity, hoping and focusing, even potentially seeing a lot of feminine energy, feeling some stability point in terms of seeing some energy that is moving in the same direction. Masculine energy in separation, guess what? You're in alignment with a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now. A lot of this path work, though, for the feminine and masculine energy in separation has more to do with the fact that this is masculine that's having a point of observation in terms of how the way that you may have moved in the past wasn't necessarily serving energetic connection the way that it should. And for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now, being able to recognize and identify this, having that point of discovering one's own self, leaving oneself emotionally open, if you will. It feels like you may have come through like a bit of like this energetic breakthrough, if you will. And it could even be amplifying in terms of looking at the past self right now with that sense of like frustration or regret in terms of circumstances or situations. But what we're identifying and seeing right now for a lot of the masculine energy, this ability to identify what you would change within the self and bring it forward at this time is, in a way, being able to take that negative feeling and moving it into a positive, because you're not letting yourself sit in a space or place of despair. You're utilizing it as a point of productivity. You're focusing on the task at hand. You're recognizing and you're feeling that full point of like emotional balance, if you will. So even now, and we're seeing here, what is the masculine and feminine in separation effectively occurring and doing right now? They're minding their peace. They're focusing on their peace, and they're working in harmony with energy that is doing the same to a certain extent. So even now we are recognizing and identifying that there's a lot of positivity and healing that is happening for the energy in separation right now. And for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, there could be a feeling right now of a lot of emotional balance that is coming into play. And that's really beautiful to see to a certain extent. Continuing to get clarification in terms between our Eight of Pentacles in combination with our Ace of Pentacles in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with the Chariot in its reversal. This is why we see right now for a lot of the energy in separation, I want to say that this feels a little bit like a sense of surrender, a sense of acceptance, because that sense of acceptance that we're effectively seeing and recognizing right now is effectively not necessarily chasing after something that wasn't working. This is why we see right now that a lot of the energy in separation is just coming into a point of peace to a certain extent, because this is that assessment point, and this is why we needed some of that heavy energy that was coming in last week. That sense of like profound frustration coming into circumstances or situations that may have felt like some sort of energetic breakthrough that is now allowing for new productive connections to occur or for some deep healing to occur. Because this is the energy that's effectively affirming the desire not to chase after what's working, not to put more into something that isn't working. This is why we saw that for a lot of the feminine energy, this was a moment of finding personal peace in separation by stepping back and effectively just saying, recognizing the difference between one's own ability to create positive versus trying to energetically fix something that wasn't necessarily trying to fix it with you. And this is feminine energy to a certain extent, effectively just saying like, this is like feminine energy, like coming into a space of like karmically calling things to a certain point and saying like, if something isn't working, no matter how much energy I put into it, then that's that moment that I have to observe that that isn't a limitation point on my own self. That is not necessarily showing something that feels like it is in alignment with the direction that I'm moving towards. So this is why we see here that this is feminine energy, almost recalling their energy and focusing on what works right now, hoping to bring in energy that is going to move with them in the same directionality. And what are we seeing right now? With masculine in feminine, in masculine is effectively doing the same. The masculine energy that has come into a point of emotional balance on the self, coming into a point or space where, again, if this is masculine energy that tried to open up to the feminine, that tried to be completely open to the feminine, and that created a sense or space of rejection, this is, again, masculine energy, if in separation, that effectively is affirming and asserting the difference between what one can do versus what one needs to be in alignment with. Because this is almost masculine energy looking at circumstances and effectively saying, if I've energetically opened up to someone and they're not necessarily there to receive my openness, my emotional vulnerability, that's not a weakness on the part of the masculine. That's just showing the fact that there isn't energetic alignment there. So what we're effectively identifying at this time is, again, a little bit of a release process that's coming through, but with a focus on the positive and the productive. Now, for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this moment or opportunity that's happening, this feels to a certain extent, I have to stress here, can you see what's happening here? This is that moment of effectively seeing and experiencing something that feels like not the fact that everything needs to be perfect here. There's a lot of energy that's potentially coming into divine union right now, in the observation point of seeing what you both do when something starts to fall, like break down here, that is like almost recommitting someone now on the path work. Remember when I said, to a certain degree, circumstances don't change people, they reveal people. There may be a moment that may have been amplified last week as a point of conflict. Remember some of that tight energy that I said was coming in? But again, seeing like what one does in a point of frustration is now why, like I have to put it this way, and this is why it's really beautiful. It's like almost energy that's saying to each other, I love you when things are great, but I love you and even more when things aren't great, because that's the moment you show me how great you are. So that ability, that encapsulation is effectively why we see energetically right now a lot of energy that's probably potentially moving much more quickly towards each other, because this is feeling that energetic amplification in recognizing something or a situation that may have felt like it was, creating a struggle point, but it's amplifying what one does in that moment that is now bringing a lot of energy into the deeper connection. Now, masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, this is why we see that whatever that frustrating energy right now may also be like recommitting on your own plans, if you will, because this is that moment or opportunity that we're effectively identifying right now that is really articulating on the fact that even energetically, the energy in the divine union doesn't see the negative, even when they're not necessarily in alignment. Because what happens energetically when there isn't alignment? The commitment to finding the productive, positive path forward is the energy of divine union. It is the commitment to one another to find that pathwork and to be mindful of the other that is allowing that frequency of feeling like you are working together, even when there are points of frustration. And even now we see that that's that balancing that's coming through, even if it created a sense of frustration last week that was amplifying in some of the energy. Continuing clarification right now between our Ace of Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our King of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. King of Wands in its reversal. Now, masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. One of the things that we are seeing right now, and I have to stress this has a lot to do with the pathwork of the feminine, even in the divine union frequency, is again, feeling that level or degree of commitment in terms of building with masculine right now has a lot to do with feminine also healing from past circumstances and experiences wherein feminine was not necessarily able to build in the same way with masculine. We see here, this is why it's so important energetically right now for the feminine to be able to hold space, if you will, Because even now we see that a lot of that energetic path work that the feminine needs to navigate in divine union amplifies what didn't work. It amplifies what wasn't working. So even now for feminine, understanding and recognizing that to a certain degree is allowing for a little bit of clearance. And this is why we see, to a certain extent, even now, it may have built some experiences of feminine potentially feeling triggered. Why does feminine energy get triggered sometimes? Because feminine energy, especially when they see masculine moving forward in a way that doesn't feel like it is mindful of the feminine, harkens feminine energy back to situations and circumstances where feminine wasn't feeling like they were in alignment with masculine so much as they feel like they were having to be forced to follow the path of masculine. And what we see here for the energy in divine union, even unpacking their own trepidation in this way, even navigating these hurdles, even walking through potentially how masculine addressed some things that may have created a trepidation space in feminine, maybe even reminded feminine of something, like that past echo, if you will. Even that point right now, we see is allowing for a deepening of the commitment, even in divine union, because it is that moment or opportunity where, again, feminine recognizes that the path work isn't one where the feminine feels like they can't openly express towards masculine. This is feminine that feels like even feminine energy's own ability to articulate on their own healing journey to a certain extent with masculine energy imbalance is amplifying the point of productivity. Because this is feminine energy that sees and experiences a masculine that is vulnerably open to feminine. And this is masculine effectively also articulating to feminine that they have seen it too, either in past versions of self or in the energetic energy of the masculine, even experiencing other masculine energy around them. This is, again, masculine energy that is, again, so emotionally connected to the feminine via their own ability to connect with their own emotional self, that this is masculine sharing in some of the feminine energy's own anxiety and burdens as it relates to experiences of the past. So we see even now, this is a deepening of commitment to a certain extent, energetically, that is allowing for that path work. And for masculine energy in the divine union, this is that moment of confronting what could be best articulated upon as your own passions, your own urges, your own ability to recognize those and be able to, and we see this here. For masculine, this may be feeling like some deep path work right now. Because even for the energy of the masculine, in divine union, this ability to overcome your own need to rush forward on things, your own desire, right? Because this is that requirement zone that we see, being able to come into that point of moderation with the feminine, because we saw here that was leading to some of that amplification of frustration right now. It feels like vulnerable work. There's a part of you that wants to scream out and say, I'm not getting my way. But again, if you're energetically opening, you're being able to look at that and say, what is that voice in me that says that I'm not getting my way is the way I should move, right? Being able to move into that point of assessing one's own desires is bringing masculine into a sense of better emotional alignment. And they may even be unpacking this right now with feminine in the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is masculine energy that is almost again, there's a lot of masculine energy that is deeply committing right now into some path work with feminine, because this is masculine energy that is feeling that there's something about this right now where they feel like they can be emotionally vulnerable with feminine energy. That there's something here that we're seeing that the masculine energy is feeling a safety net, if you will, potentially even experiencing and seeing some situations from the past playing out and observing the positivity, being able to work with the feminine energy that, again, was able to take a negative and turn it into a positive, if you will, even now. And for a lot of the masculine energy, I need to stress this, coming into divine union, it may feel very frustrating, because this is the observation point, masculine, that yes, a lot of you coming into divine union right now are feeling the amplification of feeling like ideal counterpart energy that's able to work with you through difficulties in a way that you may have experienced before. But you're probably also recognizing that a lot of it has to do with your own emotional and spiritual growth as well. This is why we see right now that for a lot of the masculine energy coming into divine union, it feels like it's effectively bittersweet to a certain extent. Because it could be this point of observation of recognizing that how you've moved in this way is a point of self-understanding. And the reason that things are moving better now is because you understand the self more now. You're more open with your own self. And this could be, again, having that feeling of accountability for the past version of self right now that may feel a little frustrating and overwhelming for some of the masculine energy embodying this right now. Because it's that sense of feeling like you can't go back and change the past. And the more that you've come into alignment with the self in the present, the more you may desire and wish that you could. So that ability and recognizing, holding space for yourself right now, masculine, if you're feeling like that. Remember that that is a part of the pathway of understanding and healing. So if you're feeling like that, that means you're doing the work right. And making sure that you don't hold too much anger or regret on the self is also a part of that journey, because this is that moment of masculine not wanting to come into despair or frustration at the past self, but more looking at how you can amplify what it is that you're moving towards going forward. So this is either, again, for the energy of masculine in separation right now, this is either masculine returning back to situations and circumstances wherein they feel like that openness will allow for a point of change. Realizing and recognizing almost now energetically that there's energy that almost like they can see and understand why there was potentially a separation in the past. If you're now landing upon this, you're suddenly potentially realizing, oh, this is what this person was asking me for all along. So this is now that moment that effectively masculine, you're either trying to go back towards something that effectively came into that space to say, I get it now. I understand what I didn't necessarily understand before. Or this is masculine energy coming into new alignment in separation, being ready to start that journey again, being ready to rebuild, and feeling that sense of positivity because you're understanding what's changed within the self that's going to allow for better productivity and possibility. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Cups in combination with the Sun, in combination with our Four of Cups. May I please get one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with Two of Cups. So what are we seeing that is happening right now? Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency. I mean, I gotta say, this is beautiful energy coming through across all of the frequency, but for masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, one of the things that we're recognizing, and I do feel like it is leading to a lot of breakthrough energy for masculine in divine union right now, because we are seeing, I have to stress right now, I know I can already see the fact that for some of the energy in the divine union, there's that feeling of frustration. But we're seeing and recognizing that energetically, this is that sense or ability of being able to overcome one's own immediate desire with a point of emotional balance feels like the breakthrough for the energy right now of the masculine energy in the divine union frequency. Because this is almost masculine energy that is feeling the full weight and breadth of your own journey as it relates to being a master of one's own self. Moving from a state of emotional openness that is helping you navigate any feelings of desire that may effectively take root or like feel like they're driving you in the wrong direction. What's happening right now for the masculine energy in the divine union frequency? Masculine energy, you're almost like looking at yourself and being like, oh yeah, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. Like again, like being able to like ascertain and recognize What feels like it is positive and productive versus what feels more like, I want to say, that like base level urge that is driving you into unproductive spaces or places. Your own ability to effectively channel that sense of frustration into a creative space or place is being amplified here. And for a lot of the masculine energy, that in itself is why we see that you feel like you're potentially in alignment, because you're potentially recognizing and understanding that this is a moment that it's like your ability to bear that weight energetically is being with feminine energy that allows you a space or place of feeling like it is safe to emotionally open up. This is masculine energy, potentially even like walking feminine energy through that to a certain extent. If not tangibly, if not like practically, in some way or shape, knowing that this is feminine energy that is open and receptive to truly seeing you. Because this is not necessarily a space or place of masculine feeling like they need to hide any aspect of themselves. It's more about the masculine energy feeling like they move more in a state of being mindful of the way that they want to move, because they're trying to protect and preserve the energetic harmony that they find with a connection that allows them to be the most authentic expression of themselves. Feminine energy, seeing this on the part of the masculine, is also building that sense of alignment right now. And we do see the fact that there may have been a point of frustration that opened up last week as it relates to masculine wanting to rush forward on things, feminine wanting to slow things down. What was the masculine energy in the divine union doing that is now feeling like a bit of heavy path work for masculine energy in this way? Masculine energy was being sensitive and mindful of where the feminine was, slowing things down, slowing down their own desire to meet the feminine energy's needs. Feminine seeing a masculine that's able to do that. This is not feminine energy pretending that masculine doesn't have that same drive or desire. This is feminine energy that understands the masculine completely to a certain extent. And it is feminine energy's own appreciation of a masculine that puts the needs of partnership before the needs of self, that is amplifying to feminine the alignment of being in divine union. That's why feminine is almost able, again, to immediately make a point of compromise for a masculine that finds them in that space, because this is feminine saying, I am also willing to come into compromise because I want to provide to you whatever you need to be able to maintain that. Do you see how both of these energies are trying to give to the other as much as they can, if you will? Seeing that all coming from a point of personal prioritization of the other. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. This is that point of seeing some point of conflict energy, like last week, recognizing something that felt like it was more of a practical hurdle, but being able to even potentially even feel like there was a bit of a disruptive energy in relation to some kind of like fight or something, but feeling the fact that there's something about the energy that is able to take a conflict space and utilize it in a productive way instead of something that creates separation, leaning into the point of discomfort to allow for a breakthrough, is where we see a lot of energy that's just like being like, I wasn't sure before and now I'm positive. I wasn't sure, I was on the fence, but seeing how that person handled that difficulty energetically, like from that moment happening, wow, that sealed the deal, if you will. Being able to see that to a certain extent, a lot of energy coming into divine union right now. That's that amplification point. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is why we see energetically that feeling of frustration allowed for the clearing of a lot of karmic blockages. That feeling, and again, we saw a lot of energy that was potentially waiting. Felt like they were not necessarily in separation, but more waiting for someone to come forward in a certain degree or desire. That karmic feeling of waiting is almost waiting for someone to energetically come into alignment with you. And that sense of waiting we saw was almost amplified in that powerful like thrust that we got over the weekend that was almost pushing us forward. But not pushing us forward into spaces that were feeling like they were lacking. They were pushing you forward into spaces that felt like they were healing, felt like they were productive, felt like that moment of recognizing. And again, if you were saying to yourself, I don't really want to do this, but I'm forcing myself to go do the thing I know I should be doing, Congratulations. You're on the healing path. Being on the healing path sometimes means like you have to like energetically eat your vegetables to a certain extent. Being able to take that energy and move it into a productive space, pushing yourself forward, potentially even making some energetic connections right now and being like, I don't think this is going anywhere. I'm being completely honest. I don't know if I'm in the right space or place to be able to like be in a partnership right now. Guess what? You're exactly where you need to be. Because that's that moment that you're coming from a state of complete transparency and complete authenticity. And that is something that, again, energetically, if the energy is seeing someone that is just basically coming forward and being like, listen, I got to just put my cards on the table, like that is the breakthrough energy, because you're not moving from a state of falsehood. Okay, you're just moving from a state of finding your true self and allowing that to speak on your behalf, right? Now, masculine and feminine in the separation right now. This is masculine. A lot of the masculine energy right now potentially has had enough of emotional breakthrough, a deep, whatever that heavy energy that we saw over the weekend was. This was that moment that was amplifying a sense of masculine coming into energetic, emotional alignment with the self. And for masculine energy and separation right now, this is either allowing for a sense of recognition that you now understand what that point of commitment is. You understand like what you're trying to heal. You understand how you may have been moving in the past that was leading you down a lot of corridors that were leading into separation. So your own ability to be open and expressive and authentic with yourself right now may be feeling like, again, like the energetic blinders being removed to a certain extent, because it's that moment of recognizing that any illusion that you were trying to put around someone else, you were really just putting around yourself. Right? It's like walking in, like it's like creating a false space. It's like creating like an unhappy dream scenario and then walking yourself right into it to a certain extent. So this is that moment that you may be holding a lot of feelings of frustration at yourself, because it's easy to see now that you're moving from a state or space of openness and clarity. And what we recognize here is, again, this is masculine that's either leading forward back towards feminine to be able to offer this to feminine, this point of emotional balance. And what we like about this right now, for a lot of the masculine energy moving in this way, there could even be a sensation of not necessarily even doing this for the sake of trying to build into partnership. This is almost coming into a state of emotional, energetic balance with the self. This is almost like effectively saying, like, I need to restore something here. I need to restore something energetically with energy that may have helped me come into this point of understanding of the self. And so we see here that that is being expressed right now in masculine, either wanting to mend fences and try to heal something, or this is coming through right now in masculine, realizing and recognizing that this is a moment that they're effectively moving into new energetic connections with that same level or degree of authenticity. And for the energy that's moving forward in this way, it does feel like, again, that weight of experiencing something that may feel like it took a very heavy toll. Because this is almost that moment now of masculine observing and building forth right now energetically, but holding space for all of the things that may have led to that place in the past. So right now, there may be a lot of masculine energy. And I need to stress this right now, masculine. You have to be very cautious about this, because this is where we see that you could get all confused in your own space. Recognizing what your intentions are is incredibly important right now, because that ability right now to mend fences and build bridges needs to come with a state or space of authenticity, in the sense of recognizing what your intentions are. And if you're not necessarily clear about your motivations and intentions here, this may in itself be a part of that path work. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Wands in combination with our Chariot in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Four of Swords in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. You know, this is something that needs to be navigated. It needs to be brought up. But again, what's beautiful about this, for the energy right now in the divine union frequency, there may be a lot of conversations that are happening. And this is why we see here that this is becoming a path of productivity. Identifying what feels like it is potentially a repeating pattern, something that doesn't feel like it's creating productivity, something that feels like it keeps reemerging, but is leading to a limitation point. That observation right now is effectively what's allowing for the breakthroughs. Because we see here energetically that this is not energy in the divine union that like puts blinders on or tries to shy away from what isn't working. It is energy that looks directly at what's not working, that is willing to work together on what's not working to be able to figure out a way to get to where they're trying to go with an easier point of view. This is what we call productive conflict. Allowing that point of observation to build towards positive situations and circumstances. So we see here, and this is what's so difficult right now. For the energy coming into divine union, this could be leading to a lot of energy moving a lot faster into that state or space of deep. This could be deepening connections right now, even a rushing forward on plans that you may have held out further on, being like, I don't see the need. Why are we even waiting? Because again, it's almost that feeling of looking right now for the efficiencies. Now, one of the things we see here, and this is what we need to be very conscientious of, and this is where we see that point of recognizing what feels like it is productive path work versus what is something that feels like it is coming through to help you identify and recognize some older karmic lessons, is a space or place of seeing here circumstances or situations that if you're moving into a space of productivity, what can often come to the surface at the same time? Experiences from the past that did not necessarily lead to that same sense of positivity. And what we're identifying right now, and this is what we have to be very mindful of, not letting yourself get caught thinking too much about those spaces or places that things did not work in this way. That sense of understanding right now, that point of alignment, that point of identifying the place that things are moving productively while amplifying what didn't move in that fashion, that's expression of the fact that you're working in a positive way. The reason you're able to move productively forward right now is because you recognize and hold space for the lessons that didn't necessarily yield to the same results. And that's what's really important as well right now, because that observation point, it can create a lot of sadness. It can create a lot of feelings of regret. It can create even a moment of feeling a lot of like frustration, even as things are moving productively for you. But make sure that you're just holding space for that, because that place, that's what you need to put healing towards. That's the situation or circumstance that is effectively being created here, especially if you're having that modality of experiencing the productive thing that's amplifying the thing that didn't work. That is that moment of identifying the difference in when you're moving in energetic alignment with someone versus spaces and places you weren't. And that's either going to articulate, if you are in separation right now, as an observation of one of two different modalities. That's either going to recognize something that you feel that you could have done differently had you been in a different place, but observing and understanding that you cannot blame the past self. The past self was doing the best that they could do. You're doing the best that you can do now, is helping you motivate forward. Versus places or spaces where you are recognizing the difference karmically in moving with energy that is in alignment with you, feeling the ease, the disruptive ease, how quickly things move forward can almost create that echo of the pain that was carried when you were holding spaces or places that you were trying to move in that direction, but they were effectively refusing to. So we see even now that energetic alignment point, it may feel energetically like you're doing a lot of dual path work, but that's also a sign that you are moving in a productive fashion, because that's not assuming that everything was perfect up until this point. That is recognizing that your amplification, your ability to hold space for joy, is going to also articulate in terms of your own ability to hold space for sadness. It is an expansive journey. It opens when you open yourself emotionally, you leave yourself emotionally open to be able to navigate both of those feelings at once. Like think about an instrument that plays a high and a low note at the same time. So even here we see that there's a lot of energy that's moving forward in a positive fashion, recognizing that that sense of feeling both feelings at once is the sign of emotional expansion. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Chariot in its reversal in combination with our King of Wands in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Page of Wands in its reversal. A lot of this work right now for some of the masculine energy and separation. I don't want you to get mad at yourself about this. Don't do it. Don't get mad at yourself about it. Because we see here that this is a lot of masculine energy right now, and we like to see this potentially in separation. You may be doing a lot of work right now in terms of some inner child healing. I bet a lot of the masculine energy right now is almost like I was thumbing my nose around inner child healing until I had this breakthrough point with my own emotional self. Because this is that moment that, again, what is happening for the energy of the masculine in separation that is feeling that desire to drive them forward into spaces or places that they know isn't the best place for them to go, but is what they feel called or impelled to do. You're looking at that like a little unhealed inner child. Because that's what an unhealed inner child does. An unhealed inner child goes towards the things that isn't what's best for them. And the higher energetic self needs to pull them back and say, what are you doing? That doesn't make any sense. So like we see here that even now for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, your own ability to ascertain and almost look at the past self and be like, oh, I thought when you meant inner child, you meant like what I was doing when I was 9. No, it could be what you were doing last week. It could be what you were doing an hour ago before you started to look at the self and the urges that you feel and asking whether they feel like they're in your best interest or whether it's that unhealed inner child moving in the direction of things. Even now we see that this is the masculine energy doing a lot of that work, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. That is allowing for the broadening of the emotional self, the opening of the emotional door. Because what happens when you come into a place when you want to like move towards something, you go, and you just pull it back and say, I don't think that's what's best. It is allowing for that feeling of frustration because oh, it's Lent. Okay. Okay. It's that feeling of recognizing that being able to hold space for your own frustration and not just following through on it is effectively helping you enhance your own emotional ability to hold space and feel your emotions. It just came. Continuing to clarification on these cards right now for the feminine energy and separation. This is simultaneously work that the feminine's doing right now. And the problem with feminine energy and separation in this capacity is this is a healing that is coming through right now in the refusal to allow masculine energy to move around like an unhealed inner child. This is feminine energy taking their own weight and burden of responsibility here to a certain extent. That's why a lot of the feminine energy right now is potentially stepping back from some situations and saying, I'm doing this not just for me, I'm doing this for you. Because this is feminine energy that's basically saying, I don't want our partnerships to be amplification of me treating you like I am your mother or having to be in a caretaker capacity. This is feminine energy almost looking towards masculine and saying, do you understand? I am stepping back if I feel like I have accidentally fostered a place where I have become your caretaker for your unhealed inner child, that mother energy, as opposed to a counterpart energy. So this is feminine energy that's effectively just being very mindful of this right now. This is why even now feminine feels like potentially they're moving away from some energy that they don't desire or aspire to, but almost saying to the energy, come back when you understand that I'm not in a place or space where I am supposed to be acting in the role of a maternal figure. So we see right now that even energetically, this is what is so difficult, because there's feminine energy that may feel a lot of a connection right now to a masculine, but is almost trying to amplify the difference between an energy that feels like it is requiring an over investment of care, of energetic care to the masculine energy, versus something that feels like it is supportive and balanced. So this is why we see for a lot of the feminine energy right now, this is like, I'm doing this not just for me, I'm doing this for you. You know, like this is, and it's coming through in a way being like, I hope you understand. And what is the message that's coming through? When you understand, come find me. I'm going to still be doing what I'm doing. You know where to find me. This is almost that energetic equivalent that we're seeing here of feminine effectively saying, I'm not, this is like, I have to stress this. This is almost the energetic equivalent of feminine saying to masculine, I'm not abandoning you. I am releasing you so that you can find yourself, and then you can find me. So, continuing to get clarification on these points right now, the energy that is in divine union, even now we are recognizing and identifying that masculine and feminine's own ability to navigate difficulties and to navigate burdens, if you will, is what is effectively allowing for a lot of breakthrough of pathwork here. Because again, masculine and feminine that are coming into the divine union frequency, this recognition point for specifically for a lot of the masculine energy coming into divine union, this is a mixture, this is a mixed feeling. Because masculine, you may be feeling the amplification of having learned some deep lessons, having had a lot of emotional breakthroughs, but also recognizing to a certain extent that that's also coming through in terms of the energy that you're working in alignment with right now. So if this is this question that masculine is effectively asking oneself right now, which is like, does this have to do with a lot of the work that I'm doing on the self, or does this have to do with like the counterpart energy? The answer is yes. Because again, that is that moment of recognizing that when we are doing our inner path work, the external environment also is important. Having the right energetic energy around us will amplify what we are doing, or it will negate it. So we see that for a lot of the energy of the masculine right now, coming to that point of understanding is building a sense of healing one's own self. At the same time, feeling that again, that degree or that moment of like rushing towards feminine, but not wanting to put the feminine on the pedestal, recognizing to a certain extent that this is that collaborative work that you're doing together, as it were. And even now, this is some tricky path work for masculine energy, because it's also amplifying, again, that moment of breakthrough, of energetic, emotional breakthrough can sometimes feel a little overwhelming, because then you suddenly go, oh, and you wish you had that path work prior to this point. Don't hold that against yourself. Let yourself come into a state of healing. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency. This ability or this assessment, as you were, in terms of recognizing one's own sense of what one desires to do and being able to come into a point of moderation on it right now, even now for masculine and feminine in divine union. Masculine, you are feeling to a certain extent that you are growing into your own sense of self, because this is that moment that you're not feeling a point of frustration in terms of not being able to do things the way that you want. You are feeling the strength and the weight of coming into your higher self, allowing that point of observation versus what you desire to do versus thinking about the other, is that expansiveness of energy, because that's that moment that feels like you are coming into a state or space of identifying that you can do that and still be in a sense of like, it's like finding yourself in the moment that you're denying yourself your own desire because of the sense of the energy that you are working with around you right now. Continuing to get clarification on the and feminine, seeing a masculine energy in this modality in divine union is also feeling like difficult path work, because what happens to feminine energy in the divine union when you experience moments or modalities wherein you see masculine rising energetically to this challenge? It harkens back to spaces and places where masculine could not do so. So we see even now that ability to recognize and hold space for it, even for the energy in divine union, it feels frustrating. But at the same time, we are recognizing that it is amplifying the next two cards that we are seeing here, which is the Chariot in combination with the Two of Cups. Now, masculine and feminine, continuing to get clarification on this, one card to clarify. We have here our Page of Cups in its reversal. Now, masculine and feminine energy in divine union. This ability or this identification point in recognizing what feels like it doesn't necessarily serve you versus what does is being amplified right now in terms of holding space and identifying that ability to come into alignment no matter what we're experiencing. So we see even now this ability to identify and feel like a lot of these obstructions or a lot of these hurdles are just things that need to be navigated to a certain extent. That ability in identifying that at this time is what's amplifying the connection point. Because it's almost this point that we see that being able to identify and articulate what feels more like different ways of trying to get to the same solution, that in itself is what feels like it is a deepening of the commitment energy around masculine and feminine. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Because it is that moment of identifying that you are working together. So it doesn't necessarily matter so much if you're going into spaces or places and you might have different ways of addressing things. The ability to keep one's eye focused on that horizon point, that ability of identifying and recognizing that you are moving in the direction of a mutual goal, having that mutual pathwork, if you will, that ability to be able to overcome what feels like those immediate hurdles for that long-term aspiration or that long-term goal is what is effectively allowing for a deepening of breakthroughs. Because that is that moment that we are recognizing it feels like a lot of seriousness that is effectively coming into play around circumstances and situations. Now, masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now, this moment or this ability in terms of recognizing that you yourself are finding that sense of alignment, coming into that point of effectively identifying right now what having that point right now of recognizing what is effectively working towards you right now. And again, this is why we see energetically there's so much energy right now that is moving through obstructions and hurdles more as nuisance energy. I have to stress what this is going to feel like for a lot of the energy coming into divine union right now is that moment of amplifying what is and is not a frustration. Because what are we effectively identifying right now for the energy coming into divine union? This ability of seeing obstructions and recognizing that when you are on the right path, it feels like those obstructions, like those large obstructions, are just inconveniences. They're hurdles. They're just things to be mollified or adjusted. This is bringing a lot of seriousness to circumstances and situations right now. Because again, I want to put it like this. Energetically, like when you're coming into divine union, it's like, it's like what's like the mailman's credo, wind, rain, doesn't matter. The connection is what's the importance is. The prioritization via V being not necessarily caring about the obstruction points is effectively amplifying the value and power of these connections. And we see that it's actually bringing a level or degree of heightened seriousness to circumstances right now. A lot of masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, getting more serious about the work that they're effectively doing right now. Because again, it's that feeling of finding that counterpart energy and just wanting to move into deeper alignment with it. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Swords in its reversal in combination with our Page of Wands in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with balance, masculine and feminine energy that are in the divine union frequency. This is that moment or opportunity that we see that there's a lot of balance potentially coming through right now, because I have to stress, we saw that there was a lot of heaviness that was coming into play over the last few days. We were recognizing that. We even saw the fact that energetically, even for the energy in the divine union frequency, there were feelings of potential disruption. It was harder, effectively, for the energy in the divine union frequency to navigate that, as opposed to the energy that wasn't in divine union, specifically due to the fact that that same push was what is driving a lot of energy into divine union right now. So even now we see that for the energy in the divine union, this is feeling like more of a point of refinement. This is potentially amplifying right now in terms of looking at anything that may feel like it is a bit of a repeating cycle, to be able to come into a state that is going to allow better balance going forward. Especially, and this is coming through for both masculine and feminine right now, in terms of identifying what could be made more efficient, in terms of identifying what could be made easier. So even now we like this because this is that energetic healing that we like to see even in the divine union frequency, that moment that even that amplification of frustration is allowing for a point of deepening balance, if you will, because this is that moment of being able to find productivity even at the heart of a conflict. So being able to come into alignment and moderation and balance right now is effectively reinforcing the bond of a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency. And for masculine and feminine, it does require pushing a little bit outside of your comfort zone. Not pushing so far that you're completely outside of it, but hovering on the outskirts, if you will. For masculine, it's going to be with being open about your emotional state. For feminine, it's taking more action. Why are we surprised? We're not surprised to see this. Feminine always wants to step back. Masculine always wants to drive forward. So what are we seeing when those energies are working in balance? They're taking on the role of the other. Feminine taking more of an active push. Masculine taking more of an energetically open pull. Energetically being able to find that counterpart energy to find the balance point in the divine union. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union, that same ability, recognizing that harmony, even in a point of conflict, is effectively now sealing the deal with a lot of energetic connections. It's that moment that you're recognizing, and this is why we say difficult situations do not change people, they reveal people, because that moment that we're potentially seeing that happened over the last few days that may have felt like a bit of that struggle, a little bit of time on that struggle moment, seeing how you both engage in a point of struggle, seeing that it brought you together instead of running apart, was amplification that you are on a healing journey. Masculine, not running away, being more emotionally open to the feminine. Feminine, taking a more of that active role. Again, and boom, energy, deep, already just immediately coming into divine union. Beautiful. We love this. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is feeling like a little bit of a release process energetically right now, because again, and this is hard. This is where we see that it is so difficult right now for these energies in separation, because there could be a moment right now that you feel like you're moving into alignment. You could be feeling right now like things are moving in that state or space that you're moving into a point of healing for yourself. For feminine, what's problematic right now is this is holding space to a certain extent for some energy that you effectively are recognizing that need or that desire to. But the problem with a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now is, if these are circumstances and situations where the feminine has expressed a practical need, a practical desire to the masculine, and the masculine is insisting on trying to come towards the feminine without fulfilling that practical need. This is feminine energy that's getting to the heart of it, like Sherlocking it and being like, that's an unhealed child that is coming towards me. An unhealed child comes towards someone and demands something without recognizing what they need to give in return. Like, the unhealed child will run up to the ice cream truck and demand ice cream without recognizing that there needs to be that energetic exchange to allow for the ice cream to come through. And so this is almost feminine energy that's feeling the weight and even potentially the guilt and the regret of holding space for an energy that they want. They feel that desire to take care of, but they're almost energetically recognizing that they need to relinquish because it has become too much, that capacity of feeling like you're just having to care for someone like a child. Feminine does not want to be in relationships that feel like they're just amplifications of the mother role. So this is feminine energy that's almost pushing away from some partnerships right now, saying, I am releasing you with the hope that you move out of the unhealed inner child state. You come into emotional balance. You know where to find me. This is why feminine energy is effectively moving forward right now to a certain extent. And it feels bittersweet for the feminine. Feminine doesn't want to relinquish that energy. Feminine wants that energy to grow, but feminine also realizes that her emotional health is not fostering holding someone in a place where you're almost like, again, building upon someone else's own inviolability point emotionally. This is feminine energy saying, like, to keep caring for you in this way is like not allowing you to be able to find your full expression of self. So that's why we almost see here that this is feminine energy doing a lot of that work and feeling like the balance point is coming in saying, like, it's okay to feel that weight of energetically thinking about that person if they come back, either internally or even tangibly right now. But this is feminine energy, almost like emotionally, like energetically, gently pushing someone out of a nest to a certain extent, saying, I can't be in a mother role for you. You have to come towards me and recognize what you need to bring forth in order to have a positive, harmonic partnership. Feminine may even be unpacking this a lot with some balanced masculine energy, even now, that may be so difficult. Masculine energy that is in separation right now, this could be the observation point that you may have been moving prior to this point in that way. And so if you're in that modality right now, that's good. That's beautiful, because if you recognize that, something that is recognized within the self is something that can be mollified and healed and changed. Observing how you may have been moving in the past like an unhealed inner child is ability to, again, not just necessarily move in any direction that you feel like you're called towards. That's like what a little child does. Shiny object, shiny object. Like that's like how a toddler moves. Being able to see one's own self and be like, oh my God, I was moving like a toddler was moving. I was just going after shiny objects. Your own ability to see that in yourself, it's allowing for breakthroughs. It's allowing for balance. So if you're going through that moment right now, masculine, don't get mad at yourself about that point of observation. Recognize that that's an expansion of your own energetic process. You're coming into a deeper alignment of the self. So what we're effectively identifying and recognizing for a lot of the masculine energy in that modality right now is that ability to identify that is how you're building pathwork for yourself and finding balance even in separation. And this is either a moment, if you are acknowledging this about the self, that you now recognize that you can bring this forth to another. Because what do we do when we acknowledge that our unhealed inner child was taking the wheel? We can come forward with a sense of responsibility in terms of recognizing that we're no longer moving in that fashion. So being able to come towards some things right now with a point of responsibility for a lot of the masculine energy and separation, this is either going to come through in terms of identifying, are these healing paths of the past that you feel that you need to come into rectification with if this is how you're experiencing things? Or is this a heavy lesson that you're energetically taking as you bring forward, going forward from this point? The bigger question, and that's going to become the personal journey for the masculine in separation, is what do you feel will create that sense of balance? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Page of Wands in its reversal and our Page of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. Got ahead of myself. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union. One of the things that we want to ascertain right now, and I have to stress for masculine energy, this is the feeling of deepening commitment. For the masculine energy coming into divine union right now, this is that moment of recognizing that that ability to no longer move in that fashion is a part of the choice of divine union. It does feel like a maturation process. But again, it is the recognition point, and this is like the breakthrough energy for the masculine in this modality. This is not that feeling that coming into divine union is some kind of energetic ball and chain. It's like coming into a mansion. It's like coming into a mansion. Because this is that moment that you realize that that ability to relinquish moving in one's own desire, to come into that sense of energetically amplifying something, is coming into a deepening understanding of the self. So what we see here is for the energy, and some of that was effectively expressed as you were, potentially as some of that frustrating energy we saw in terms of, again, seeing energy approaching crisis, having frustrations, and feeling that ability of new pathwork, new productivity, new solutions to problems rising up in the wake of what was feeling like a frustration point is being amplified, if you will, right now for a lot of the masculine energy, specifically in identifying the fact that it doesn't feel so much like an intentional choice. It feels like you're immediately, like you're almost growing into the person that you were supposed to be. Feminine, seeing a masculine moving in this way, is also feeling a lot of alignment, because this is potentially feminine not feeling like you're forcing a masculine to move in this way. It's potentially feeling the relief of finding a masculine that's already learned to do this for themselves. So even now we see that for a lot of the energy in divine union, coming into divine union, it feels like this profound sigh of relief, as it were. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, this modality is one that, again, it feels a little, this is where it comes through and feels a little bit more frustrating, right? The divine union, I told you, this is the energy. This energy was harder for energy in the divine union right now because, as I said, it had a little bit more frustration in terms of where to put it. A little bit more frustration there. So what we're effectively identifying right now for the energy that's working in this capacity or in this degree, what we're effectively seeing is that point of opportunity that's building in the divine union frequency is that sense of, again, masculine. You may be feeling that ability to recognize, even now, your ability to, like, come into a point of moderation with feminine, like throttle down, if you will, your own desire, moving at the feminine energy's own energetic speed. Even now we see that this is masculine in the divine union, feeling a lot of that emotional expansion that's coming through, amplified in the ability to, like, hold forth and build that protective environment for the energy around you at this time. And for feminine, seeing a masculine that is able to move in this degree, again, an energy that is able to maintain consistency, even at a point wherein they're feeling there's that expression or that understanding of the frustration, is reaffirming to feminine that this is divine union. Because, again, this isn't just masculine that is moving forward of their own degree. This is masculine that's being in tune with feminine. And so for feminine, what is happening here? This is feminine also healing their inner child wound. This is feminine also feeling that same expression in terms of what they aspire and desire to do, reining it back in to allow for a point of activation. So both of these energies right now coming into union with one another that felt like, again, stepping back, felt like a moment of, like, personal sacrifice that allows for the expansion in terms of productivity. That is what we find with divine union. Continuing to get clarification with these cards right now between our Page of Wands in its reversal and our Page of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with Five of Wands. So this is the thing. I have to stress, I got to tell you, there was potentially some energy that fell into separation over the last week or so. And what we're effectively identifying right now is, again, it is being amplified in terms of what one does in a moment of conflict. Conflict does not change people. It reveals people to a certain extent. So what we're effectively identifying here, more so than anything, is this moment or opportunity that's potentially coming through right now. For the energy in the divine union, this is feeling that full expansion of what occurs, what is occurring right now for both masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency. And this is why I told you that the energy in the divine union frequency, this is feeling more frustrating. This is feeling more challenging. This is feeling more triggering, because that feeling of conflict is going to feel more internal. Because energetically right now, for the energy in the divine union frequency, having to come into that point of modification, having to come into that point of unification and compromise, it does feel like the inner child on both is experiencing that point of frustration. But what is being amplified through that point of frustration? Internal work that leads to breakthroughs. For masculine and feminine. Feminine, it's amplifying feminine's own fears of moving forward, of taking more direct approaches to things, right? For masculine, this is that fear of the emotional self, if you will. Both of these energies, to a certain extent, feeling that weight. That is the expression of the differentiation between the masculine and feminine unhealed energetic signature. And we see here, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, that these are the expressions in different ways within these energetic frequencies. Feminine has that amplified in an inner child wound that makes it sometimes afraid to move forward, to take action for fear of reprisal. Masculine is afraid of emotionally opening up for fear of rejection of the emotional. What do these energies need to do to be able to come into alignment? They need to push against each other's comfort zones to allow for that state or space of productivity and breakthrough to occur. And even now we see that for the energy in the divine union, this could be amplifying in some feelings of conflict or frustration, if you will. And the important thing to keep in mind is not hitting over that tipping point between what feels like it is healthy and productive spaces and places to challenge one another versus what feels like it is just conflict for the sake of conflict. Because again, finding the harmony right now, remembering that that energetic point should reach harmony, is the difference between, again, experiencing and embracing what could be described as like a healthy conflict versus something that feels like it is a distraction point. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is the fortification and amplification of coming into divine union, not despite conflict, but because of conflict. Seeing the fact that you're able to handle conflict in a positive, productive way is what is now reinforcing a lot of energy that is trying to come into divine union. And it's now making the conflict point feel more about the things that are in the way of being in divine union as opposed to any energy in divine union. Because especially if these were conflicts that were sprung up because of outside external obstruction points, this is almost, again, not blaming each other, but looking at each other and saying, what can we do to like overcome those outside hurdles or adversities, if you will, is the amplification right now of energy that, again, is recognizing that it feels like you guys are not fighting against each other. It feels like you're fighting with each other, right? That's the difference. Now, masculine and feminine in separation right now, there could be energy that's trying to explain this to another person. There could be energy that is trying to explain to someone, especially if there's conflict energy around, the difference between having an energetic conflict that feels like it is leading to a point of productivity versus conflict that feels like it acts more of a smokescreen as opposed to getting to a solution. So we see even now, and this is where we see a lot of the energy and separation, even as they're starting to move forward on this positive path, it feels like both masculine and feminine energy are potentially reaching some inviolability points in separation here. And the inviolability points that are reaching points on this pathwork right now is the difference. Whether something can come into a point of healing versus whether something is effectively being relinquished right now is the feeling of someone coming into a point of conflict with you because they care about you and they're trying to be able to maintain and build a connection, and they're willing to make the changes appropriate to be able to maintain and solidify that connection, versus an energy that is fighting and resisting and just trying to create a challenging space because they want their own way. I'm going to say it like this. This is the difference between how a child argues and how an adult argues. How does a child argue? A child tries to argue and amplify the noise, hoping that the louder they get, the more that they'll be able to get their way. Versus an energetic argument with mature energy that effectively amplifies that if we experience a challenging moment, it's because we both care about the other and we are obviously experiencing a miscommunication and we don't feel like our needs are being met. So the difference right now in amplifying an argument that feels like someone trying to get their way, refusing to change, versus an energy that's trying to amplify and say, I am willing to change. I'm trying to do everything I can to meet you. We are seeing here that some of this energetic misalignment that's occurring right now that is creating a sense of breakthroughs coming through is energy suddenly realizing the difference in those types of arguments. Are you arguing with someone over the nuance of how to do something together? Or is the argument really one where you both actually desire very different things and you're trying to bring someone over to your side? So we see here that even now that moment that is happening is amplifying what feels like that is a point that is allowing for a deepening breakthrough of personal self versus feeling like you are not necessarily in alignment with someone that is on the same journey with you because they're not able to come to the same point of modification. So even now, and there could even be, again, the energy that's healing right now is conflicting over themselves, relinquishing things like this, because the energy that wants to give is trying to say to themselves, maybe I can give more. Recognizing, again, that if you're not necessarily in a space that someone else is thinking in that modality, you're never going to be able to give enough. So even now we see, and for a lot of the energy and separation that may have come from experiences wherein they were moving in this way, having that point of personal breakthrough, if you will, maybe creating internal conflict, because that is now that moment that we are observing wherein our past self may have prevented an ability to come through a point of conflict. So even now we see that there's a lot of energy here that's doing a lot of processing. The problem with this right now is, again, whether these are creating spaces of breakthrough or whether this is amplifying something that isn't changing. Final card for today's spread between our Justice card and our Five of Wands, and it's upright. One card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with productivity. Receptiveness is key. Making sure to recognize and amplify the difference between listening and engaging in conflict. And I see even now that even energetically, we are seeing and understanding that the energy in the divine union is working through moments that may feel like they're conflicting spaces. But again, what is reinforcing the energy that is in divine union? The reminder that you're moving in the same direction. The reason that the conflict feels like it's productive is it's not the fact that you guys are moving in opposite directions. It's you guys both want the same things. There just may be a little bit of fine tuning in terms of how to move in that way. So we see even now the energy in divine union, that sense of healthy conflict is allowing for refinement of manifestation goals, because again, you are recognizing and you're not forgetting, you're not losing the plot in terms of like what you're trying to move towards. You're like basically both trying to do something. You're trying to go in the same direction. You're just arguing about how to do it. The energy that is coming into divine union right now, this is that moment that is being fortified. There's energetic unions right now that just came into deepening divine union through some kind of conflict space. The ability to see, an ability to have a conflict with someone and almost immediately recognize the mutual ability to stay focused on the task at hand instead of getting yourself lost in the fray of the conflict itself. Letting that motivate you forward is now speeding up a lot of processes in terms of commitment, because this is almost someone saying, I like the way you argue. Even when we have a conflict point, I feel like it is productive. I feel like there's a pathwork here. This is almost amplifying that to a certain degree and saying this feels like an easement. This feels like there's something here that is productive. So we recognize and identify even now that ability of seeing this. This is what's moving now, escalating things, speeding up processes, because now it's about removing the outside obstructions, making something easier as you go forward. Masculine and feminine that are in separation. This ability right now, do you see this? This is that moment that we feel like there's balance being restored to situations, because again, this is either being amplified in energy that is putting the desire to move with someone above and beyond their own personal conflict points. Almost saying, I am willing to engage in that point of trying to come into nuance to be able to move forward. Letting that be that point of productivity. Or we see that there's a moment here that is being amplified in someone feeling the difference between a space or place that they're leaving that is only conflict, but it doesn't feel like the conflict creates a pathway of resolution. It just feels like it's conflict for the sake of conflict. Energy that isn't willing to like modify or adjust, but is only insisting upon their own way, versus energy that feels like it's moving more in harmony with you. And we see that that's that amplification point of someone, again, releasing a relinquishing process right now in terms of identifying what feels like it is serving a purpose versus something that just feels like it is an exhaustion point. And we see that even masculine and feminine right now in separation is going through this process right now. There's a lot of fine tuning that's happening here. And there could even be a moment right now of, again, energy that's moving forward, but still in the act of experiencing what feels like an ongoing conflict point. And now we see that a lot of this work, the ability to like move forward, is in terms of identifying, and this is where it gets very, very specific, what feels like it is actually going to create a space of productivity, or what feels like it is just a repeating cycle of conflict. So we see that that point right here is the value point that's coming into the fray to help effectively identify what you feel is creating balance right now versus what's not. And this is almost holding space of, again, recognizing that conflict is good, but conflict needs to be conflict for the sake of progress, not just conflict for the sake of having your own way and feeling like that's the way it needs to go. Final card for today's spread, bottom of the deck, is this is difficult. This is heavy energy here. We've got here 6 of Swords in its reversal. There's a lot of release that's effectively coming through right now. There's a lot of experiencing what needs to be relinquished to allow for that productive path forward, as it were. For masculine and feminine that are in divine union, even now, that point of recognizing, coming into that point of understanding, that modification of meeting the other, pushing against one's own boundaries. It's heavy, it's hard. For a lot of the energy right now, it's almost amplifying the pathwork that you may have had to come into previously that didn't offer that level or degree of balance. While for the energy coming into divine union right now, this is feeling the weight of commitment. Because every time we fully commit to something, we need to relinquish something. So even now, this could be feelings for a lot of the energy coming into divine union of potentially putting away childish things, as it were, as you become invested on this path that almost feels like it's inevitable because you found energy that makes it feel so easy to move in alignment and accordance with it. While as for masculine and feminine separation right now, this is more of that amplification of processes of separation wherein one's aspiration and hope that someone can meet you on your path doesn't necessarily allow for someone to be able to change their path. This is the acceptance of what is in your own power to control versus what needs to be accepted as fact right now that is amplifying what needs to be released versus what needs to be tolerated. That is our daily collective read for today. I'd like to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, gracestrega.com. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I'd like to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these messages. And we will do this again tomorrow.